I want to say again, I really appreciate you doing this call with me.
It's all good, man. The reason that I did it, and I'm driving, but I'll turn my video on for a hot second. The reason that I did it was because the Players Association hired me probably about almost a year ago now, well, two and a half years ago now, and I walked away about a year ago,
Mhm.
and they hired me to put together a program to assist players with their transition out of the NBA. So as I began to put it together, I think that, well, first thing, the Players Association and myself, we just had two different views and philosophies on the best way to go about helping guys, um, transition out of the game. And when I say that, and very simply put, I believe that it was a process in which you had to, you know, get to know guys and allow them to transition the way that they were going to transition, but just with more support, right?
Yeah,
It couldn't be a program that just said, hey, we're going to check some boxes, and if you need some help, let us know. It doesn't work like that. We've tried that for a very long time, and we failed because the divorce rate is high.
mhm.
Guys aren't, coming out of the NBA or any professional sport, just kind of landing on their feet, jumping into communities and being real productive citizens.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, then why do we continue to do the same thing? Why don't we create a process that, one, gives us an assessment of where guys are as they're transitioning so we know how to be prepared when they come to us for help. And then two, that assessment will also help them identify, places where they may need assistance down the road, right? So we
Yeah.
can trim down, that number when you talk about divorce because not just divorce, and I know I said that a couple of times, but at the end of the day, what we want is we want young college athletes coming into the NBA, growing up as men, and then leaving the NBA to go into the world and impact the world and their communities, right?
Mhm.
And we're not getting that right now. So if that's the case, why would we continue to do things the same way? Why wouldn't we try a different approach? So when you asked, I was like, oh yeah, I can definitely talk about that backwards and forwards. So I'll shut up and let you ask your questions.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think your transition was a little different because you retired with an injury, basically? Do you think that transition was a little different than like a normal transition right out of retirement?
Um, so there was two or three parts of that. One, that last year of my career was difficult for me because the previous 12 years, um, I felt pretty stable. I knew what city I was going to play in. My family was with me, and all of that. And then that last year, right during media day, I get called into the Bulls office, and they say that they're going to trade me to New York, which I'm not happy about because I had spoke with them and told them that if you're going to trade me, please try to do it in the summertime so that I can go to whatever city I'm going to and hopefully find a place for my kids to go to school and somewhere to live and all that. Anyway, that didn't happen. So I go to New York and I try to make the best of it. But it's not a great situation. The coach and the GM are fighting each other, and I'm kind of caught in the middle.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking my last year that I'm going to play in the NBA, and we didn't win very many games. It wasn't a good to Toronto, and they got a new general manager. I'm pretty much beat up physically, emotionally, psychologically, and I just said, hey, I'm getting paid to play, so I go there and I do my best. And then, yes, I get injured. And there's a part of me that wants to continue to play, but I just decided it was time for me to go and just walk away from the game. And again, the crazy part of they say retire, but a lot of guys don't retire. You just don't get another contract and you just stop playing. Like the really good players, they have an opportunity to walk away on their own terms, and that's only probably 5%. The other 90 to 95%, they don't have a choice. Teams don't want them anymore for whatever reason, and they just walk away.
Yeah, I understand. Was there any like specific players that reached out to you when you retired?
Not necessarily per se reached out. I was heavily involved in the whole Players Association thing, so a lot of their guys who was working in the association or things of that nature kind of reached out after. Well, let me put it this way: everybody still wasn't clear on whether or not I was retiring, because I never like formally announced like, hey, I'm retiring, I'm not coming back. I don't even think I knew. I took that whole summer and told my agent like, hey, I'm gonna think about it, but I don't think I'm coming back. And then my closest friends, Dale Davis and Greg Foster and some of the other guys who I talked to pretty frequently. And we usually chat all the time. I just told them I didn't think I was coming back. So as far as guys reaching out, nobody really reached out because I don't think they kind of knew that I was retired.
When did you realize you wanted to join, like become a broadcaster, like NBA TV, ESPN?
No. That came about shortly after I retired. I moved to Atlanta, and the NBA TV was moving their studios from New Jersey to Atlanta to the Turner Studios where they are now. And they were asking guys in the city to come down and I say interview, but it wasn't really an interview. Later on, I found out it was a real interview. But they were just asking us to come down and kind of talk on TV, see if we like it. And so I went down there, and eventually I did some stuff for NBA TV. And then a guy saw me there and put like a sizzle reel together. That's just like some highlights of me being on TV. And he pitched it to ESPN, to Fox, to some of the other college networks. And ESPN called about a month later, and I went on an interview with them, and the rest is history.
What has been one of your favorite moments working as a broadcaster?
I think doing some of the playoff stuff, times where Indiana Pacers were in the playoffs, and I was in some of my memories of playing there. The Raptors were playing in the playoffs, and I got a chance to talk about them. So anytime it was playoffs and I had an opportunity to be on TV talking about some of my former teams and situations, I think I would consider that a highlight. And then some of the other ones were kind of meeting some of the football guys up there. I was always a big fan of some of the football guys, Jerome Bettis and some of the other ones, and they worked at ESPN, so it was great to get to meet a lot of those guys.
Was there any like specific person at ESPN and NBA TV that like helped you transition into working as a broadcaster?
There was a coach there that's no longer there, which is a shame. But I can remember when I was doing my interview, he told me, he was like, hey, this can be great for you. You just have to understand what it looks like on TV. And so for the first, I guess, few months, or even really my first few years there, I would go to him after my segments, and we would sit down and kind of analyze, and he would talk to me about my presence and my speech, just everything. So if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have stayed 5 years. But I think through his coaching, I had the opportunity to stay for a long time.
Do you think you would ever join a coaching staff if you got the opportunity to?
No. My buddy Greg Foster is a coach right now. I think he just got a job with the Indiana Pacers. I got a call him. I saw something on social media, and I know he's been busy. But in talking to him, it's a lot of time. You know, it's more time and work than when you play, because you're going in for coaches meeting before practice, before games, and you're staying the whole time, and you stand after. And I don't know. I don't want to spend that much time in the gym anymore. So coaching wasn't one of those things I wanted to do.
Did you enjoy? I saw you were coaching your kids when they were growing up. Did you enjoy doing those?
Yeah, that was great. Once I retired and had the opportunity to coach them, it was extremely gratifying to watch them learn the game that I love to play, and help them understand it enough to where they can play, you know, as long as they wanted to. And it's going pretty well. You know, Kayla is playing in the WNBA and playing overseas, and AJ is playing overseas right now too. So I was excited about that and excited about what they're doing right now.
What would be your main recommendation for like any players going into retirement?
I think the biggest thing is, you know, for so long, players have spent so much of their time preparing or, you know, getting better or whatever. You know, basketball was at the center of their lives. And when you take that away, you have to fill it with something else. So if I could tell them anything, it would be to find their next passion. Like, what are they going to fill that big space with? You know, and there's so many positive things, you know, but in essence, you have to, and there's a lot of study on this, you kind of have to grieve the sport. Like, it's, you know, a lot of us started when we were really young, 10, 11, 8, 9. Some guys started earlier than that playing basketball. And here you are in your late 20s, maybe early 30s, and all of a sudden you're not playing basketball anymore. And for some of us, it can feel like the end of the world. Like, who am I now? Like, I have no identity. And, you know, life presents so much more after you are that age. You know, you have an opportunity to do what you want to do. You know, be who you want to be. Control your time. And many of us have kids, you know. Devote yourself to being a great father and a great husband. But it all starts, and that's what I was talking about when I was first mentioning that transition program, is you got to do some work on yourself, because basketball has been a distraction for a long time. So you really have to find out who you are and what you want to do. And hopefully you have enough, you know, money saved up so that you can spend the time doing that. But I would tell them, before they do anything, figure out who they are and what they want to do with the rest of their lives.
This was before your NBA career, but how was the transition from overseas, played overseas the first 3 years in the NBA? How was that transition? Was that difficult at all?
Yep. Yeah, that was good, and I'm glad that I did it because there was just so much that I felt like overseas prepared me for. Like I was very humble. I mean, I washed my uniform and I lugged my game stuff around, and we traveled a lot on buses and all of that. So when I got to the NBA and they were doing all that stuff for me, I was like, whoa, that's a lot of time I could be spending doing something else. So I was very appreciative. And then overseas, I was practicing pretty much twice a day. So, I was used to long practices or being in the gym for a long time. Um, and then, my third year when I was in Italy, I was coached by Mike D'Antoni. So I spent a lot of time with him in preparing to go back to the NBA because I pretty much knew that I was going to go back after my third year. So yeah, overseas for me was the best decision I ever made for my career.
What would you recommend for now seeing a lot of kids go to the G League, going overseas? Would you recommend them going there instead of going to college?
Um, I think it all depends on the kid. I think that, well, the first thing I'll say is I and the NCAA because you know these young men come in, they sign to go to these schools, they're offered an education and whatnot, and I don't think that they're given what they need in order to go out into the world and be successful because there's such a huge percentage of them that don't make it to the NBA, or they don't have the opportunity to earn a living after they played NCAA sports, after they were a student athlete. So for those schools who allow guys to come back and get a degree and all of that, I love those schools. For the schools that don't, I hate them. just as much, because if we're gonna say go to college, then we're gonna say you're gonna get a degree, and whatever time frame that takes, that's what it takes. But for the player who is truly gifted and has an opportunity to truly play, I mean, yeah, if it was my son leaving high school, I probably would explore him going overseas to play and have an opportunity to hone his skill, then go to college. Because at that point, you can pay for your own college.
Yeah.
But again, it just depends on the kid.
It should be like a requirement. Say you can go straight into the NBA from high school. If you go to college, you have to do like 2-3 years. Think they should do something like that?
I you know, I do feel like there should be either you go straight into the NBA, or if you're going to college, yes, you at least spend 2 years, if not more, in college. Because either you're ready or you're not, and I don't think you go to school for a year and then you're ready to go to the NBA, because it's so much more than that. It's more than just sports, you know. So yeah, I agree with some form of that.
Do you think what do you think got you more prepared? The college life or the overseas life for going pro?
Well, definitely overseas. I mean, college was good in the sense that I was able to learn how to manage my time and get an education and all of that. So I wouldn't dare say that I'm not appreciative of going. I went to Texas at El Paso. I eventually got my degree, so I'm excited about that. But as far as preparing me for basketball, I would definitely say playing overseas prepared me more.
Is there any like specific head coaches you would recommend to like any players? Like, you said you like to have a D'Antoni.
Um, you know, I learned a lot from each coach I played for. From Larry Bird to Lenny Wilkins, Butch Carter, Larry Bird, all of them. I think that's one of the things that I felt like was one of my strengths. I allowed coaches to coach me, and was very appreciative of the time that they spent caring enough about me and my success. So I think if I was to say that to any player, it's allow a coach to coach you, and then you'll get the most out of it.
Do you think it was good for like to see like player I saw once in '99 you requested a trade out of Indiana? Do you think that's good? How like you see now Russell Westbrook requesting a trade out of Houston? Would you recommend players to request trades or play out?
Um, to me, I think it's all about how you do it. When you say request a trade, I think for me, every summer or after every season, you have, or we had, an opportunity to have a face-to-face, one-on-one with our general manager. And after I forget what year that was, after my fourth or fifth year, I had that meeting, and I specifically asked, like, what's my ceiling here? Will I ever have a chance to be a starter? And I was basically told no. And so that's when I said, well, if there's an opportunity that comes up and you guys can trade me for someone who you feel could fit this role indefinitely, then, do that. So I don't see it as I requested a trade. I just see it as, hey, I wanted a win-win situation, and in that situation, I don't feel like I had, opportunity to be all that I could be. Who knows what would happen if I was a starter? And it happened. I became an all-star, had a great 4 years in Toronto. So, yeah, that's how that played out. But I mean, and I'll say this though, if I had to do it all over again, I don't think that I would have had that conversation the same way. I don't think I would have been talking about trade me. I just would have stayed in Indiana, as long as I could.
Has there been any players that you personally reached out to about asking help, whether it's coming out or going into retirement, just that?
I think before I got that position at the Players Association, I just maintained contact with a few guys, and in that I started realizing that that's one of the things that all of us struggle with is we don't connect to each other. Like for some reason, even today, I don't know, because of the job that I had, I got probably 40, 50 guys in my cell phone. I got their numbers, and I reach out to certain guys here and there, but when I retired, I didn't know many guys. I knew playing against them what that was, but I didn't know them personally, hardly any of them. So, no, I don't reach out much now, and I didn't reach out much then.
Do you think any other players? I'm sure you were this. What was your main part, like the biggest troubles you had coming out of retirement?
Say that one more time.
It was like the hardest thing transitioning into like out of retirement.
Hold on one second. Someone's calling me. Let me ignore them real quick. Say that one more time now. I'm sorry.
Sorry, what did you battle the most with coming out of retirement? Like, what was the hardest part?
Just as I said, hey, you got to find out who you are
Mm.
and then what you want to do. I mean, those two things are really hard for me. Not that I felt like all I was a basketball player. That wasn't it. I just, I think I struggled emotionally with, like, what am I going to do with my time right now? Like, how am I going to be uh, useful to the world, to society, to my family? Whereas before, I was, I was a freaking superhero. I could do anything, right? When
Yeah.
you're playing the NBA, you're making all this money, you're on TV, everybody's calling you for everything. And then once you finish playing, nobody's calling you for anything. So adjusting to that part was hard for me. And then I learned that, I had value, to myself, to my family, to the world. And then I think that's when retirement started to really feel good. Um, yeah, so that was probably it.
Would you recommend that any players to like invest into like the stock market, or you see Shaq with, like Papa John's? Would you recommend that to players?
Mm, one of the biggest mistakes I think we make as players is, we've played basketball all our lives. So if anybody asks us anything about basketball, we can tell them backwards and forwards. But that took a lot of hours of practice and watching film and playing games. And now that we're done, we have to either learn that skill of business and entrepreneurship or marketing or whatever it is. We have to learn that and then apply it. So sometimes you need to find great teachers, great partners, great people who could teach you that. And um, my advice to any professional athlete coming out and that want to get involved in, franchising or marketing or any of that is, as long as you're not spending your money, you know, it's fine. If you want to go into something before you spend one dime, you make sure that you spend time learning that business. Don't just invest in something and you don't understand it. You don't know the end game. You don't know how you make money. You don't know the risk. So, yes, I would tell them to explore all of it. Being an entrepreneur, whether it's franchising, starting your own business, but all that goes back to what I said before. Find out who you are and what you want to do. And once you do that, then you'll have that same passion as you had when you played. You'll go and spend the time to learn that business and be the best businessman you can. Um, but that's the passion we got to have in everything that we do.
Well, most of the other questions I have. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, man. I'd love to, once you finish, kind of let me see what you've done. But I think this is a great topic. It's one that a lot of people are spending a lot of time trying to figure out how they could, help professional athletes, not just basketball players, but help professional athletes with that transition, because it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. And that's the crazy part is it's not just professional athletes, it's professionals in general. If you go and look at, like, my mom worked for the same company for 45 years. And when she retired, she had some of the same struggles I did. Like, who is she now? What is she going to do with her time? Like, all of that. So it's not just professional athletes, it's professionals in general changing. If you were a banker for 35 years, all of a sudden you're retiring at 60, early 60s, and you still got a lot of life left, then what are you going to do? you know.
Yeah.
So I think that transition, regardless, is just very tough, and you know, everybody's still trying to find out what's the best way to do that.
Well,
So
Zach,
thank you.
I hope to work with you one day. My goal is to work at ESPN when I get older. Internship.
All right, all right, well, keep working, man. Good luck to you,
So,
and you
thanks,
take
man. I
care.
really appreciate it.
All right, take care. Bye bye.